Welcome back to the Hoops Temple podcast. Y'all know me, Nathan Schwartz, and joining me from Sacramento, Aaron Schroeder. Aaron, how's it going?
It's going good, man. Good to be here. Back at it with some small forwards.
Yes, sir. After today is done, we will officially have the top 100 for three positions. So we'll have ranked out 450 players between point guard, shooting guard, small forwards to 100, and then power forwards and centers to 75. The dream of having a top 70 or top 500 is less of a dream and more of a reality at this point. How are you feeling?
It was always a reality for me. I had never had a doubt in my mind.
You keep saying that, but now it's here. It's getting closer.
I'm ready for
Well,
it.
good
I've been
sir.
ready for it.
All right, let's forget how we've done this. Did any small forward who is outside of our 175 jump into the 175 for you?
Into the 75? Not that I had in mind. Did you have any brand new names? We added Jaylen Brown. We added DeMar DeRozan. DeMar from the shooting guards list. Brown as well, but Brown also jumped up quite a ways away. They ended up slotting in at 36 for DeRozan and 32 for Brown.
I thought we had them. Well, no, that makes sense. Since here, I just haven't quite updated in my list here. No, I was kind of surprised because this position I think is the deepest modern position. I mean, we've got a bunch of guys that are currently playing, like what, 10, 12 guys currently in the top 75, but no one who I really felt like was outside the 75 and needed to be jumped into it, like the same way we do with point guards, where there was just a myriad of players from Shea to Jaylen Brown or Jalen Brunson and your guy
Modern
Fox.
guards, very good.
None of that. All right. So I say we just start at the top. You've got a lot of revisions, I know. I'm just going to read down. Correct me when I've got someone who is in the wrong place. Just the way the listeners, if they don't want to go back and listen to years of podcasting, can kind of know where our heads are at.
Yeah.
All right. Number
Years
one, small forward, LeBron James.
Sounds good.
Larry Bird, Julius Erving, Kevin Durant. Any desire to revisit the Kevin Durant, Julius Erving debate?
Not particularly. I feel like maybe when it's done, like when Durant's career is over, we'll look back and be like, man, that was actually that was kind of crazy. He should be ahead of Dr. J. But I think each season we're waiting for him to have a dominant regular season or come alive in the playoffs and make a run. And like they got swept in the first round. It was bad. It was a really bad playoff showing. And so like I think even since like we started doing this, I've said, hey, KD should be above Dr. J. I'm just waiting for him to take it. And yeah, I kind of yet to see that from him, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, it was a very passive getting swept. What they did to Minnesota in the last week of the season had me predicting not just that like the Suns would win, but that would be a relatively easy Suns victory. And then they just completely fell flat. And part of it is Durant never elevated, never stepped up to the plate offensively or defensively in the way that I would have really expected him to. So I can't feel strongly about trying to get him over Irving. So after the Durant Irving, we have a nice little cluster here. Number 5, Elgin Baylor, Scottie Pippen, John Havlicek, Rick Barry, Kawhi Leonard. Any desire to shuffle that around?
No, I feel good about it. And I think with Kawhi, it's the same conversation with Durant. And you're waiting for him to like, all right, let's see it. Like you're the playoff killer, you're 2019 Kawhi, you're that dude. And he gets injured every season. And I think the question of can this guy finish a full season hasn't been answered. I told you that, and you said that it had. We do have an answer, and the answer is no. Like Kawhi Leonard can't finish this season. That is the consistent answer.
Yeah. I mean, the Toronto year, it isn't even quite an answer to it because he was healthy, but only really in the playoffs. Like, yeah, I mean, the man still misses 20 regular season games. It's far from the dominant performance of which we keep wanting, the start to end. And at this point, I think we just know that's never going to be what it is. Sorry to our wonderful friend Dylan. It's just not going to happen. Sorry, buddy.
I do have a change for
So that,
the next small forward though, which is Dominic Wilkins,
oh
number 10.
no. Listen,
Yeah.
I know we need to re-rank Dominique Wilkins, but are we really going to move him behind people? Who are you putting over Dominique?
You know what's interesting is I actually don't think he's going to get moved back on the small forwards list at all. But we have Dominique 44th all time, and the next small forward is Pierce at 56. And I just want to close that gap. I don't think there's that much of a difference between the two, or there shouldn't be that much of a difference. We have McGrady at 51, and I think that's about where Dominique should be. It's not a small forward change.
I'm not opposed to it. Okay. I'm not updating the all-time list till we get through all of these positionals. Then we'll go through. I know you've got the list for TikTok for your Patreon. I approve of bumping him back to the T-Mac.
Do you want? Let's say, are we saying he's still better than McGrady?
No, I do think I want McGrady above him because at least with McGrady, you have that supreme high talent before he gets hurt. Dominique's got a little bit more health, a little bit better longevity, but I think relative to their peers, there was a time where you looked at T-Mac, a couple of years where you looked at T-Mac and said, this is the second best guard in the league. This is a top 5 player in the league. I'm not sure Dominique has that as much. Maybe he gets the small forward nod once or twice as a top 2 forward, but I think it's comparable. I'm okay with him behind T-Mac.
I just want to touch on why we're moving Dominic back. He has the one All NBA first team. He's top 5 in MVP voting twice or 3 times. I might still say we should have T-Mac below him. We've had that for a long time. That still feels right. Plus, Dominique is just such a good scorer for so long. But the reason moving him back is he sucks on defense and he's not a good passer. And that's just the face value of that. I think the way he played offense, he's such a prolific scorer and you could build good offenses around him. He wasn't very like all his assist numbers are low. I wouldn't describe his game as like the ball sticking to his hands necessarily. And so the Hawks are still pretty good and still pretty successful, like with him leading them. But he doesn't make the 50th anniversary team. And that is very notably because he sucks on defense and he wasn't a good passer. I think Larry Bird made fun of him at some point for that. I wish I had the quote in front of me where he basically said, you suck on defense. You're not a good passer. And so for Dominique, you get this crazy high level of scoring, but he's not the all around small forward that these other guys are.
Yeah, that's fair. Are you sure you want to just stop there, or do you want to move him behind a couple of guys who I think are lesser talents, but contributed in higher ways? So like Pierce, you cannot tell me that Dominique would not beat Pierce in a game of 1-on-1. Yeah. But what you could say is that in a game of 5-on-5, Pierce is able to affect the floor in greater ways than Dominique is.
I really don't think so. I think like Pierce was a lesser talent that found ways to be effective, where Dominique was just, he made 7 All-NBA teams. He is just one of the best players in the league year in and year out. He could be the best player on a really good team. He could average 30 against a great team in the playoffs like he did against the Celtics. I think Pierce found his I think Dominique could have replicated what Pierce did. Like on the 08 Celtics, he could have been that. He's not bringing the same defensive value, but then you'd be getting such an insane offensive value where I think it's still greater. I just don't think Pierce could have been the offensive juggernaut that Dominique was.
Perfect. All right. That's what I wanted to hear from you. So if we leave Dominique at 10, we leave Pierce.
Mhm.
Well, I guess the next question is, do we leave Pierce at 11? Because there's another man from the green and white squad who is now a one-time champion, albeit one of the worst field goal percentages in finals history between
Mhm.
his two appearances. Um, what are we doing with Tatum? How are we ready for Tatum yet? We putting him
Tatum,
all
I
Arizin?
have Tatum at 13 behind Arizin and ahead of Jimmy Butler. Um, Jimmy Butler has amazing playoff runs in 2020 and 2023, but I think Tatum has at this point better regular seasons, and he's won more playoff games. Like he's won more playoff series. He's made conference finals. He's made the finals before. It's not like Jimmy Butler has some insane playoff resume that offsets what Tatum has done. Um, and he won a championship. And he won the title, and I thought he was overall pretty good. He was overall very good.
Hmm.
Um, I think you're right now. You're looking at just such a small resume that I'm still gonna say that ours is better, being just a complete Hall of Fame like first ballot career.
Yeah. It's hard for me to really make the strong case of Tatum being a better player, even with the champion, than Jimmy was. However, those regular seasons, Jimmy just has not cared about the regular season since for the last several years. And really, aside from getting Minnesota into the playoffs through just an
Hmm.
insane drive, it's hard to really point to another season where Jimmy has cared and played at that high level in the regular season that makes it worth putting him up above Tatum. Because with Tatum, you're getting the 60 win teams. And a big part of having those easier playoff runs, like we can look at Boston's run, say it was one of the easiest runs. Well, big reason why it was one of the easiest runs is not just because everyone got hurt, but because Boston put themselves in such a great position over the course of 82 games that they were going to play the weakest teams. And then when those teams got hurt, they just weren't anywhere near the level of caliber or, you know, ability. Whereas like Milwaukee or Miami, they needed Milwaukee to get hurt last year to make the Eastern Conference Finals, make the NBA Finals. They that is a lucky break that Jimmy Butler did not set the team up for very well. So I am all in for Tatum at 13.
The playoffs are the most important thing in the end, right? The regular season is still 80% of the season. It's still a massive portion of what these players are doing, and
Mhm.
I'd like to see Butler show up for at least one of those. Um, Yeah, I think it feels good. So I have we Dominic can still attend, then Pierce, Harrison, Tatum, Butler, and then Alex English after that. I feel good about that grouping.
After Alex English, we have Paul George. Any desire to move Paul George up?
Not particularly. Not particularly. Another pretty good season. I feel like the ending in the playoffs was kind of underwhelming. Um, if you told me that James Harden was the only one of the Clippers to show up in that playoff series, I would have laughed at that. I knew that the Clippers were gonna have one of their four players get hurt, and then two of them play like shit, and then one of them play well. I didn't guess the correct ones. I think George was like a top 25 player this season, top 20-ish, like around there. Um, I still think Alex English was better. I think that we'll leave it there.
Yeah. I think George was the most consistent Clipper this entire season.
Hmm.
The Harden had a good game 1 and 2. Harden did pull a Harden as the series went on.
Of course he did.
George consistently, but never dominantly, I think was the best Clipper. So yeah, him at
Hmm.
16 makes sense. To me, no real need to move him up. 17, we have Carmelo Anthony. 18, Billy Cunningham. 19, Grant Hill. 20, Bernard King. And stop me when you get someone that you
Yeah,
want to
I
move
think I'm.
around.
I think we'll stop right here. I have a group I want to talk about. Billy Cunningham, we should move down. It's partially moving Grant Hill up. It's partially moving Cunningham down. Um, with Cunningham, it's a lot of this was a lot of it's like NBA ABA split stuff, and that's kind of my issue. You have these three NBA first teams that are very good. The ABA does exist at the time, but I wonder how much we're valuing him leaving for the ABA in '73 and winning an MVP. I don't think that really changes how good he was. I think he just joined a worse league, essentially. He transferred over to a worse. He was still very good. Um, I don't think that 5-year stretch basically should be worth more than what Hill was giving us in the 90s. If you remember, Grant Hill was a 5-time All NBA player in his first 6 seasons. One first team, 4 second teams, top 10 MVP voting each season. I think the biggest thing with Hill is the Pistons suck. Is the Pistons are like are not a good roster. He make takes him to the playoffs a couple times. Um, are we still here? Am I still here? Hmm. Just me.
Sometimes the computer decides to restart. Happens to
It's all good.
happen every now
What's
and then.
what's the last thing you heard from me? I stopped talking when you froze.
That you're an absolute hater on Billy Cunningham for no good reason.
For no good reason. Because his best years come in a really in a weaker talent pool, and that's we've established that, we have figured that out. And then his like MVP season, it's nothing changes with Cunningham. He doesn't figure out something. He just joins a weaker league. With Hill, you're getting the 5 All-NBA teams, 1 first team, 4 second teams, 5 top 10 finishes in MVP voting. Like if we're taking Cunningham's 5 years and Hill's 5 years, I'm taking. We should take Grant.
So the thing that I'll say with Cunningham is Cunningham played a huge part in the 67 and finals as kind of the do everything small forward. Maybe not a huge part. That's probably overstating it because he's like 22 minutes a night. Um, but 60, he's on the rise. He's a big piece. He gets hurt and fill off for them.
I think there's a
How much of that
piece
came
of
through?
a little bit, a little bit. I'll make do with what I can have. Um, yeah, I get that. I get that. There's the him getting hurt in 68. He has some really incredible seasons, and I'd say like he is in the conversation for best player in the world in 1969. Like he is very, very good. That is just kind of a weird season. Um, but I mean, it's like just the 5 years. It's the 5 years we're looking at that are really good. And then if that's the sample size, then I kind of like Hill's years. And um, I mean, Hill also plays for like 300 extra games. I think he peaked higher. I mean, he's just, I think he's better. You're not ready for me to move from this to the Grant Hill should be above Carmelo argument, and I can tell that you're reeling from this.
All right. It's more like the computer is reeling still from the restart and trying to auto open all of my programs.
Yeah. Do
Um,
you wanna take a second?
I'm gonna put Grant Hill above Carmelo.
Alright, we're back.
Yeah, maybe we'll find out. But all right, you want to make the case is potentially for Grant Hill over.
I don't think you're coming through much at all.
Take 3. We're going to try this again. Aaron, what is your case for Grant Hill over Carmelo Anthony? This, I just want to say, this is how it doesn't want it to be made.
With Grant Hill, I'm not sure I want to make this quite yet. I just kind of want to toss it out there. Hill has these 5 seasons, essentially, these 5 All-NBA seasons, and he's missing 1 All-Star appearance. There should be 8 All-Stars and 5 time All-NBA. Although 2001, I'll take that back because 01 he plays 4 games, makes the All-Star team, whatever. The thing with Hill is he is a really good scorer. He's getting 20 points a night. He is an amazing rebounder as a forward, and he's such a good passer as well. And he's really impactful defensively. Where I think Carmelo Anthony, the scoring is much better. God, he's so bad on defense, though. He's so bad on defense. And I really do think that holds his teams back in a way. Where I think it's why we see only one time in a long, relatively healthy career someone that is held to such high regard basically come through one time on a team that was really good, like just the 2013 Knicks. I'm pulling up Melo's on-off
I would say that he
numbers.
also. I would
Good.
say that he also comes through in 2009. I know it's not like the grandest, but it is a Western Conference Finals appearance. He has helped them get there. And what really kind of falls apart for the 09 Nuggets is the fact that Nene and Kenyon Martin are just not big enough to handle that Lakers front line.
Sure.
No, Carmelo doesn't ease that burden. He kind of loses the individual matchup up to Kobe as far as just like elite scoring wings, but he's also going up against Meta World Peace. It's a tough task. It's not like it's nothing for him.
Yeah, I think my issue is that even then that's the one Melo season. Like he takes a step back offense wise. He doesn't make the All-Star team. He's All NBA third team. He's averaging 23 points tonight compared to 26 and then 29, then 27 the years prior. And so I think with that team, it's like him and Billups basically. And like you still have you still have those defensive issues. Like his yeah, I'm just looking at it. Looking at his from cleaning the glass, his
I
defensive impact,
I'm
it's basically negative in every single season except for 2011 and 2014. It's way down there too. But it's in like the
I'm
sixth,
not
seventh,
opposed to having
26
Grant.
percentile.
Okay, okay. I'm not opposed to having Grant closer to him, but I just can't get Grant
Mm-hmm.
over him. I do think the
Okay.
value of Carmelo Anthony's scoring, it's just so much greater. Especially Grant Hill, we're looking at like 4 or 5 years. It's not like this is an insanely long peak. Also, Grant Hill gets this catastrophic injury at age 28. So it's not like
Mm-hmm.
this took Grant Hill out, at like 24 or 25, and we never got to see what Grant could become. We kind of saw it. We saw what Grant was about, and
Sure. None of
it
my
was okay.
arguments the
It didn't.
hypothetical.
I know, but when we look at Grant, I don't think we criticize as much of what he actually accomplished.
Yeah.
Prior to that injury, Grant Hill as a star with the Detroit Pistons.
Hey, Melo's not much better, man. But Melo's won 3 playoff series,
Is
so there's really
underwhelming
nothing I
playoff
want to hear from
performance.
that.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's fine. It just he doesn't accomplish a lot.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say, looking at it. 1 second. Cunningham. We'll go Grant Hill, flip with Cunningham. They'll each leave there, and that's what we'll do.
Mhm. Yep. So just Grant is now 18, Cunningham is 19, Bernard King 20, Marcus Johnson 21, James Worthy, Connie Hawkins, and Roger Brown. I assume based on how we've done this, you're going to want to push them back a little bit.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of work to be done. Let's think about this for a second. One second. There's a
I
lot of shuffling.
so I don't think there's too much shuffling. I'd like to push them back to the 26, 27 range, have them still above Jim Pollard. Because if we're going to pick on Connie and Roger for a weak era, it's hard for me to really feel like they have that much weaker of an era than Jim Pollard in the 50s. And Jim Pollard is an excellent number 2 for 5 championship teams, but I think that's about as far down with the era adjustments as I'd like to push them.
Okay, I think that's reasonable. The other thing is Marcus Johnson not coming down necessarily, but I really couldn't find a difference. If anything, I think Chris Mullen seemed better upon review, and we have them just a ways away. Can we need to get them closer or flip them entirely?
Mm. Mm. An entire flipping. Yeah, I don't feel like we have them too far apart, especially with this change now. Because with this change now, Marcus this is 21 and Mullen is 24. That's not that big of a difference in my mind.
It's not, but it appears on the all-time list as Marcus at 98 and Mullen at 112. And I genuinely can't find a difference. And I honestly think Mullen we probably underrated. He has the first team All NBA like Johnson does, and his longevity is much better. The All NBA teams are the same. The stats are good, maybe better. It's not like Johnson is winning that
Okay.
sets him apart. It's basically the same.
All right. Well, then, what would you say to moving Johnson below Mullen and sliding up Worthy and Dantley? Worthy, you've at least got the case of Worthy is winning a lot. Dantley is incredible individual numbers. Um, Mullen, the one thing I do have against him is just there's not a lot of playoff success. Just with Mullen as like a key figure, or like by the time he's really doing it in the playoffs, he's coming off the bench for Indiana.
Yeah. I really would hate to move Adrian Dantley anywhere. But we can leave
Well, we
that.
just moved him up 2 spots.
Yeah, we can leave that there. So we have I have
No.
Bernard King
No. I tried to do this. I tried to just leave guys there on shooting guard, and you said we're here, we're doing this. So if you have a problem with the list, let's make it better.
No, I think that's right. I'm looking at it. I'm thinking it over. So we have let me see this. It should be so Worthy's 22.
We
and
have
then Dantley
right now we
23.
have Johnson 21, Worthy 22, Dantley 23, Mullen 24. We are harder on Worthy and Dantley than the majority of lists. Both these guys are my composite writer score for Worthy is 54. My composite writer score for Dantley is 64. Yeah, absurd. But Dantley matrix wise comes in 57th in the matrix overall. Well, because he has some insane individual numbers.
He shoots like 60% from the field, and he averages 30 a night. But it's tricky because he does it on shit teams, and I think that's a part of it. I think Dantley is the worst version of Carmelo, basically, where as soon as the team gets anywhere, he starts like, whoa, where's my slice of the pie? What's going on here? Like, I didn't co-sign on this, and I think it's the reason he's unlucky in his placement, and teams just get better without him, but it's pretty consistent. The Jazz are able to build a better offense like immediately with Karl Malone, like a really young Stockton and Malone duo, just instantaneously better than that. Give me a minute on because I don't want to lose track of all the shit we're doing. 1 second. Okay, so go Johnson here at 98 to 113. Then Roger Brown are moving down to where Pollard was. And then Connie Hawkins as well.
Yeah. So if I reread my proposed changes here, what we are looking at is a now 20 through 28 of Bernard King at 20, Worthy 21, Dantley, Marcus Johnson, Chris Mullen. I do think Johnson over Mullen just because of the playoff successes. I'm not too opposed to having it flipped, but Johnson, Mullen, Cliff Hagan, Connie Hawkins, Roger Brown, Jim Pollard.
Okay, I have Hagan at 95, like way up there. He was above Marcus Johnson to start, and he's been like that. Hagan's at 21, yeah.
I do apologize. He is up there. I had his matrix ranking updated, but not his positional ranking.
Okay, this is kind of the challenging part of this list that it's gonna be tough to shuffle around. I still feel like I don't think we're being harsh enough on Brown and Hawkins, and particularly Roger Brown. Basically, I mean, it's early ABA stuff. It's super early. By like, yeah, I mean, he just starts fading towards the end of this league, and I'm just not sure how I feel about it. I mean, he's still very good. He has a playoffs MVP. Won 3 championships.
Roger Brown also, the fading, I believe, with these guys is more due to age than anything else. Because like Roger Brown comes in at age 25, Connie Hawkins I think is a little bit older because they're two guys that are implicated in the college betting scandal, which I'm in the middle of reading Blackballed. Holy cow! I freaking love how Blackball is being written because they're really giving some details of the court cases, and like Connie Hawkins was basically kidnapped to New York, thrown in a room, told he'd be locked up forever if he didn't say what they needed him to say. He basically perjuried himself, lied it under oath because he was like threatened, and was told he was only going to be there for like 24 hours, was kept without a lawyer, kept without being able to call family for 2+ weeks. Never was not even on the varsity team when this happened because you had to play freshman ball back in the time. So he never was involved in a game that you could have fixed or gambled on at the time. So like,
gotcha.
Man just got massively screwed. And I think that's the thing that happens with him and Roger Brown is they're just older when these leagues start. And, Brown declines at age 30. That's when you would expect a guy to decline at this age.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just work some stuff out.
Like it's tough for me to put Jim Pollard above them or put them below Pollard. And then like the next tier of guys is Sean Marion, Mark Aguirre. Like,
yeah. Okay. That's all right. We have one more. My next change, I'll read that from there. So after Pollard 28 is Sean Marion, Mark Aguirre, Peja, Jalen Brown, but then Willie Wise. Another, again, going back to the ABA, we'll say this 1,000 times. League wasn't as good. And this is just like he has ABA second team twice. And that's like all we're talking about. I just don't think he was special enough as an ABA player to warrant this ranking. And I'd like to see him. I don't think like Bobby Dandridge was better. They played at the same time. They're playing over the same era. Dandridge is better, and we have him at 38.
Okay, so the question is, how far do you want him to fall at this point? And we have we've got a pretty tight cluster of small forwards. I wouldn't hate having him somewhere in the Chris Middleton to Dale Ellis range.
I think that's exactly right. Below Middleton, and probably can even say above Ellis if it makes you feel better.
It does.
All right.
I'm glad we did not rehearse that or pre-plan that, and it just somehow worked out.
Right on. Okay.
All right. So if we bump him down to what then would become 40th, we have Mark Aguirre at 30, Peja, Jaylen Brown, Glenn Rice, George Yardley. And this is where DeMar DeRozan would slot in, coming over from the shooting guard list. Are we comfortable with him at 34?
Yes. I think I have the number slightly off, but I think that's right. I have 34. I have George Yardley.
He moved up to 33. Yeah, he moves up to 33 with Wise falling down.
Okay. Is that true?
No.
It's not true. I think, yeah, so Brown 32 is going to be a bitch to edit, but fucking worse to listen to. Brown 32, Rice 33, George Yardley 34, DeMar DeRozan 35, then Chet Walker, Bobby Dandridge, Jamal Wilkes, Latrell Sprewell, Jack Twyman is 40. You feel good about all that?
I mean, as soon as I can get the list updated, yeah, I feel good about this. It's right now I've got 3 guys all marked as 40 just because we've moved them around, but I think we're in a good spot. This will be nice. We don't have to name as many small forwards to get out to 70 or to get out to 100 now because we've added 2 more from the shooting guard list.
That's true. That's very true. So the next, I don't have a change for a while. Out until 53. So if you want to keep reading.
All right. I don't even know what 53 is anymore.
I'll stop you when you get to John Drew.
Okay. So 43, Dale Ellis, Michael Finley, Rashard Lewis, Meta World Peace, Detlef Schrempf, Glenn Robinson, Billy Knight, Joe Caldwell, Kiki Vandeweghe, Andre Iguodala, John Drew.
John Drew. And so the reason I want to move John Drew down, this is like, he is like the biggest ball hog on God's green earth. He leads the league in usage rate the first 2 seasons they keep track of it in 78 and 79. You know how many assists he's averaging those seasons?
2. 3.
1.7. 2 in 78 and 1.5 in the 79. He's just taking so many shots. And like I just feel like at this stage in this, I feel like Luol Deng would fit in better for winning purposes. And Drew at like okay, pretty good standard efficiency and just not passing to anybody, like probably isn't a good look.
So are you also wanting to put Luol Deng above Doug Moe?
Yes.
Okay. Doug Moe has really terrible longevity. He is another one of those early ABA guys. But Moe was not caught up in the betting scandal. Why is Moe so
I'm going to
low?
destroy Doug Moe in a second. I don't think he should be on this list.
Okay, talk to me about Doug Moe. What?
Just a second. 1 second. I have to shuffle all this shit around. So where did Wise fall to? Let me go find Dale Ellis.
Okay.
Dale Ellis. Right there. Boom.
I've got Wise now at 41.
Okay. Then okay. So for Deng made okay. Sheesh. Okay, let's say Luol Deng above those 2. Are we cool with that?
That's all you want to drop John Drew by?
I just want to start that. I just want to start that process. Basically, yeah. I think that's all I really need. With Doug Moe, you basically have him. He comes in at age 29. He has the alleged gambling stuff. He's second MVP voting in 68, and it just gets slowly worse. And it's like he is just like out of the league by 71. Basically, it's such a sharp decline. I'm not saying we should kick him off the list as I suggested. I just don't feel like it's the Zers are that good. I don't feel like the league is that good. I don't think had he been in the NBA, he would have been that notable, essentially.
So I will say, guys like him and Connie Hawkins and Roger Brown, they're the guys that carry the ABA in the first league. They are the best, far and away the best players. And they're all of these guys that got caught up in the betting scandal. Now, for Doug Moe, I do not know the ins and outs of his case. It wouldn't surprise me if it was like Connie Hawkins. Also, wouldn't surprise me if it wasn't. I'm just not as knowledgeable on Mo, so I'm not entirely opposed to knocking him back. It's just we're getting out of like the top tier small forwards and getting very much into like pretty average small forwards without close to the peak of what like Doug Moe kind of was. Like if you're really out on the peak, then we can move him back a ton. It's just there's a different class of players that we're about to get into. We're getting into like the superstar sidekicks, the versatile guys that do a little bit of everything, but none of these next guys are guys that you're going to want to try to build a team around. You're on mute.
Jack Marin played about the same time and was better. He played in the NBA. He made All-Star teams in the NBA. He played for nearly like 850 games.
Okay.
Like, that's
tell me
like
where you want to drop him.
So we'll just drop him right in front of him. I think the difference is right behind Marin. So I have Marin at 56 and then Mo at 57, and that's
So
a pretty
the new
substantial drop. Good.
It is, but there are some more players that we kind of need to drop. I feel like small forward, because these guys do so much, it's hard to entirely know what to do with them. But if we make that drop, our new kind of 50-ish range, we've got Joe Caldwell, Kiki Vandeweghe, Andre Iguodala, Luol Deng, John Drew, Richard Jefferson, Jack Marin, Doug Moe, Jamal Mashburn, and then we have Andrew Wiggins. And I know I fought to get him this high, which is 59.
Yeah. Can I say my part?
I'm
my
here to
piece,
eat my
and then
crow.
I'll let you. Andrew Wiggins was good for 2 weeks and shouldn't be on this list. Go ahead.
He was good for 2 weeks in the most important point of those 2 weeks.
If you think that's worth that much, but I think he should be. I think Tayshaun Prince is better, and we have him 68.
Yeah, that's actually right
Jalen
where I was
Rose.
going to go, is just behind Tayshaun.
That sounds wonderful. Just perfect.
Man, that moves Tayshaun up to 69, him down to 70.
Tayshaun Prince. And I want to move Karolinko up. And so there's a little more room there. Karolinko might go up a little bit higher, even above like Gordon Hayward. The thing, I think Gordon, like what Karolinko did in 04, averaging 17 points, 8 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals, 3 blocks, basically dragging a really bad roster to 500 ball, and his on-off numbers are just absurd. They're like superstar level impact. that's kind of where I'm at. Like, he was like one of the most impactful defensive players of that era while like providing some offensive value. It's pretty short lived before he just kind of transfers into like just a defensive specialist. But has a pretty surprisingly impactful peak. What do you think?
So I think my thing with Andrei Karolinko is just how brief of a peak it is. And I'm trying to both reorganize and pull guys up at the same time.
It's
And my
challenging, huh?
multitasking skills are fighting me. But if we look at it, it's a really great 04. 05, it is half of a season. Now, albeit still all defense half a season. 06, top 3 in DPOY, but the rest of the year is not so much. And then it's a sharp minutes decline from there. Like we're talking 29 minutes per game in 07. And I think when we did this the first time around, I was just like, I'd much rather have the longevity of Tayshaun doing this year in, year out in the playoffs against the biggest names than Tayshaun or than Karolinko, who playoff wise, you can't find a run where he's even getting me 12 points per game.
Can we put Wiggins below Karolinko though?
No.
All right. Okay.
I like Wiggins above Karolinko.
My final move is we jumped the gun on Brandon Ingram, and he actually sucks. And he should be below Cron Butler.
No.
Cron Butler is better. Yes, he should.
No.
Butler made 2 All-Star teams. That's one more than Ingram did. He's played for twice as long. He's been in playoff series. He's played well in those playoff series. I think Ingram is like a pipe dream star, and if he's healthy, then he's pretty good. He was dog shit in the playoffs last year. He's never healthy. He's had half a good season.
Karan has never had to be a guy for a team. Like
Ingram isn't either. Ingram isn't either. He plays next to Zion Williamson. He plays next to Zion. He was a most
Zion's always hurt.
And he's always hurt. I don't think like you can say, oh, like Ingram had to be the guy. And it didn't go well. It never goes well because he's hurt all the goddamn time. Like he's played in he had one pretty good playoff series in 2022 versus Phoenix. And like that, if we're relying on him making the playoffs twice and being good one of those times, I think at this point, this is like how's your second option work? What's your third option work? Like for Butler to be like an impactful defensive piece while providing some scoring for years and years on end. I just think it's worth more.
All right. I'm okay moving him back because I'm sure Ingram will vindicate me when we do this exercise in 2025. That's my compromise.
I love it. I love the confidence.
Ingram, you can't let me down multiple years in a row. Hopefully. All right. So that then leaves us with Bobby Furyk at 59, Cedric Maxwell 60, Jerome Kersey 61, Caron Butler 62, Ingram 63, Sean Elliott, Calvin Nat, Gordon Hayward. Any desire to move back, Gordo?
No, I'm good. I think the list as it stands looks pretty good, and that's all I had. Quite a bit of a shuffle. Thanks for sticking through that one. Yeah.
Let me finish reading her out. Tayshaun 67, Wiggins 68, Karolinko 69, Gerald Wallace, Rodney McRae, Scott Wedman, Jim McMillan, Xavier McDaniels, Kelly Tripucka, Jalen Rose, and then Mitch the Stitch Mitchell. Mike Mitchell.
Yeah, Mike Mitchell.
It's probably the nickname is off the last name, so he's Mike Mitch the Stitch Mitchell.
Okay.
Is now 77. So we have 23 slots available here. Listeners, we're 49 minutes into recording, more if you don't count all the times that uh, that my laptop just died on us in the middle of this recording. Aaron, given that is where we are at, who would you like to nominate for 78?
Chuck Person, the rifleman. With Person, you get almost
Really?
1,000 games. Yeah, that's random. That's random landing. I was pretty confident with Chuck Person. I feel like he has these 6 Indiana seasons where he's 19 points a game with 6 boards, like 3.5 assists. He's taking 16 shots a game. It's like kind of him and Reggie Miller like doing it together. They don't find the playoff success until they build like the Davis brothers, Mark Jackson, all that. But he was a good scorer. He was a good scorer for a while. He has the longevity. He has some consistency. Um, he is basically like 15 points a night for an entire career, like nearly 1,000 games. Peaked out in a 20-point per game guy on some pretty good teams.
So I found this in a 92 scouting report on him. He's the Pacers' go-to guy in the clutch. He usually delivers. Problem is that he's moody and selfish, and only some of his teammates like him.
Hey, you only need a couple of them. You only need some, right?
Yeah, no. So I think he's a really high-level contributor. From 87 to 92, the Pacers are roughly 500. With him as their best offensive player, I know what I just said there. There's only 4 playoff series that he's in where he's over the 30-game mark. But in 87, man's basically 40 minutes a night, giving you 27 points, 8 boards, 5 assists on above 50% field goal shooting. And the next year, sorry, not the next year, 91, 26 points in the playoffs, 5.6 rebounds, 3.2 assists. I really like Chuck. I really like him, but I had a few guys ahead of him. Can I ask you where you went with some of the older guys,
Sure.
specifically Bill Bradley and Tom Meschery?
I actually quite like Bradley. I had him 79th, and he led a finals in scoring. He was a very smart player, conducive to winning. I'm interested, but and tell me about Meschery though. What's the Meschery case?
So I had Bill Bradley ahead of him, so I'd like to make that case first, or at least talk about it, because it is two playoff things here. It is a guy who probably could have been a lot more on a lot of other teams, but is selfless to a fault, can do a little bit of everything. 14 points, 3.5 boards, 3.7 assists. This kind of over his peak from 69 to 75. Just does it all. Steps up in the finals. I just think, like, if we're looking at these guys and who contributed to winning, Bill absolutely could have jumped to one of these other teams and been a bigger, a shot happy guy, but instead has a lower stats and won. And so that's kind of what I'd like to see us go with here is the winners.
Okay. Yeah, and I think I like Bradley. Bradley's very interesting. He dominates in college, wins championships there. Then it doesn't go to the NBA because if I'm remembering the prestigious school correctly, I think he goes to Europe to study at Oxford.
Mm-hmm.
And so he plays in the EuroLeague for a bit, wins a title there, and then is finally done. I mean, he was a congressman for a long time. He's authored like 1,000 books. He's in, I think Benjamin Franklin's Secret Society. It's like 1,000 people in that. He's one of them. Dude's a fucking genius. Let's do it.
Perfect. The Tom Meschery case is some really good playoff stuff. In the 64 finals, there's a case to be made that he's the San Francisco Warriors' second best player. Over the course of that year, he does really tail off in the finals. I couldn't quite find if that was an injury or anything, but like he goes from 38 minutes per game in the previous round down to 28 So I think there has to be some injury stuff there. But over the course of that year, it's like Wilt and it's him, and I don't see a lot of other guys in this range that are number two options on successful teams.
I get that. I could see that. You know, being a second option to Wilt is a certain is a certain thing to be for sure. Um, he makes that All-Star team in 63, has some good playoff numbers. I get that. You want to do I'll go your direction. We'll go Bradley, Meshry, and then Person. How's that sound?
All right, all right, I can live with it. I did have Person behind a few more guys, but I'm not too interested in this knockdown, drag it out fight. Um, if I can maybe get one more guy above him, though. No, I'm okay with that. We can slide him in here at 80. So then, who do you have for 81?
I'll give you a choice. I had Eddie Johnson, the good one, or I had Hito Turkoglu.
I would like Hidu. I had
Yeah,
Hidu, Chuck, then Eddie in my own personal rankings in here. And I just feel like what Hidu brought to that Orlando Magic squad in the 08, 09, those two years is just really cool and really dynamic and kind of helped show where the league was going to head as far as
yeah,
having these really big ball
dynamic
handlers who
create.
can shoot. Yeah, yeah,
It's interesting because Jameer Nelson's so good that year in '09, but he gets injured. And then in doing so, it's like, "Ah, crap, where's our point guard?" And it's like, how about we just recreate it between basically our backup point guards, then Turkoglu and Rashard Lewis, like recreating these like big ball handling forwards that could space the floor. And I think they were much better because of that, honestly. Um, and they make that finals run. And Hitos is such a huge part of that finals run, really steps up in Nelson's place. He's like 16, 4-4, basically.
yeah. All right. Um, so I'm trying to pull up. I do all this digging, and it's hard to remember the exact cases for all of these guys is that I have. The next highest guy on my list is Willie Knowles, who
Okay.
gets 3 rings. I'm not going to say that he contributes to these 3 rings because it's like 10 minutes per game. It's the end of his career. But this is what I think a lot of people see when they look at Bill Russell championship teams is like they have all these Hall of Famers. And it's like, well, yeah, Willie Knowles from 60 to 62 has this 3 year stretch where he's averaging 23 points per game, 13 rebounds, 2.5 assists. He's picking up some straggler MVP votes. The Knicks don't win 30 games in any of those All-Star seasons.
That's a
Uh,
part of the 60s, though. That really is. And we've talked about
yeah,
that. Like, as the league expands, you get more chances to be the guy. But, like, in his best season, statistically, like 62 or 61, or any of those years, like, you just played, there are 8 teams. You played them all 10 times. And so if you weren't as good as Boston, you just lost those 10 games. And you can look back, and teams often just did that. And they played against the Knicks are bad in this era, but like you played against the Celtics, you played against the Lakers or the Royals, and you just got whooped each time because like you just played the same opponents over and over and over again. And so a bad record just like you couldn't be in the weaker conference and just like, oh, we won 40 games, we got hot this season. Like you had to play Boston 10 times.
yeah, yeah. And like he has the honored distinction of playing Wilt when Wilt drops 100. So, that's fun for him.
I think that's the right call. He's top 10 in points per game twice, top 10 in rebounds per game 4 times, 5 times actually. Like the stats are there. I try not to when there's such a dominant team in the Celtics in the 60s, I'm trying not to criticize other 60s players for not winning, for not performing in the playoffs because the league is just so tiny that it makes it difficult.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about 60s basketball, there are 4 really good teams. Whichever team has Wilt Chamberlain, whether that be the 76ers, the Warriors for the most of the decade, he gets the Lakers at like the end of the decade. You've got the Lakers with West and Baylor. You've got the Celtics with their conglomerate of good players around one of the best players of all time. And then you have the Cincinnati Royals. And if you're not one of those 4 teams, get fucked. That's
Basically,
basically it.
there's no league parity going on. There's no like league balancing. There's no free agency. Like teams just got in this hole financially, and they just year after year trot out these shitty teams, and they were just happy to be a team. I think that's the right call. My next guy, I'll give you 3 picks. I have Eddie Johnson, most points ever in a career for a player who did not make the All-Star team. We have Danny Granger, was once pretty like a really good player for like a season and a half. And then I had John Brisker, the heavyweight champion of the NBA, known for fighting and getting ejected for it. And then he went to Uganda and disappeared.
Brisker does not make my top 100. So
Okay,
uh,
that's
I'm
interesting.
I'm out there. I have Granger above Eddie Johnson. I do think Granger, you have a guy who at one point looked like he was going to develop into a real staple in the league. He does have a couple of playoff runs. Yeah, Eddie does too. Eddie also has really great longevity. Let's go Eddie, and then Danny Granger.
All right.
And then we can say the small forward Eddie Johnson is better than the terrible person who is the shooting guard,
That's true.
Eddie Johnson.
And shout out to John Brisker, though. In 1971, he averages 29 points, 10 boards, and 3 assists. He's second team All NBA. His team isn't very good. But it's such an interesting story. In 1978, Brisker traveled to Uganda to launch an import-export business, and that was it. He called his girlfriend April 11th, 1978, and no one ever knows what happened to him. He was declared dead in May 29th, 1985.
Wow. I actually did not know that part about him. I just kind of
Yeah.
I lined all of these guys up, and I had gotten out to 25. And I looked at Brisker, and I was like, you know what? I would rather have Wally Zerbiak.
Okay. There is actually a group of guys that I realized I didn't get to. I don't think a couple of them will make it, so that you'll be in charge if their name starts with a an R or lower. You're in charge of them.
Not many guys with an R name or lower. I guess Tony Kukoc,
Yeah,
who's getting pretty
Kukoc.
close.
Any
This is my
Steven
ranking.
Jackson, Rudy Gay.
The 2 highest guys left on my board right now are Derek McKee and Steven Jackson. Any interest in
Stacked.
either of those guys?
I like Jackson. Tell me about the other guy.
Derek McKee. Big D McKee. Stalling
Good defender,
for pulling
huh?
him up. Yeah, good defender. It's Heavy D. Heavy D McKee, because he did put on some weight. But we are looking at a guy who is 2-time all defensive player. He gets 6th in DPOY in 95. From 89 to 95, we're looking at 14 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, and like 3 assists. A prototypical big, or not big, but it's talked about him having handles like a guard, moving through and attacking well, also being a really good shooter. I do also think that he contributes fairly well in the playoffs. We're looking at 28 playoff series, 14 of which he's getting 13 or over 30 minutes per game. Now, he doesn't shoot particularly well, but he is providing defense in those games, and we are still looking at almost 1,937 games played. So 937, not 1,937 games played. I just think that's good longevity. It's providing value in multiple areas, and I don't know. That's just where I ended it with them.
We are at an interesting point where McKee's ability just to be, hey, like a really good defensive small forward, have some offensive versatility, play on a bunch of good teams, kind of interests me more than like, hey, Steven Jackson got buckets on the worst fucking team you've ever seen, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
I do think Jackson and what he did in 07, because he is very good defensively, has some of his best offensive years on that team. Um, his on-off numbers are really nice for the 07 Warriors once he gets there. Um, I like,
Could I
the
maybe make a
second and
proposal?
yeah,
What if we just went out left field and went with Tony Kukoc here?
yeah, that's probably good, right? That probably makes sense. I think Kukoc was the most disappointing player I've ever done a review on. Where I was like, Tony Kukoc,
Yeah.
sixth man of the year, champion, three-peated, and it's like this dude is bad in the playoffs and capital B bad, like 10%, 15% shooting in some playoff series. And then he stays when the rest of the Bulls leave, and it's so ugly at 99. Um, but I think at that point, I honestly though, I do kind of want Steven Jackson. Because he plays a really big role in the 03 Spurs. Like he is really good on that team. Um, goes on to be the number one guy on at least like
Okay.
semi-competent teams. On like, I mean, he made the playoffs with the fucking Bobcats. I mean, he's might as well be Jesus Christ at that point. Um, let's do Jackson,
A member of the We
Kukoc,
Believe Warriors. Okay. Jackson, Kukoc, Rich McGee. The one thing I will say for Kukoc, um, and it neither helps nor hurts him because we don't really care that much about what guys didn't do. But he doesn't come to the NBA until 25, and then basically as soon as he's in the NBA, he is on a team destined for title contention, and he has to take that step back. It's kind of the same as a Bill Bradley. Now Bradley contributes a lot more in the playoffs, but if he had gone to 8 other teams, that 99 season where he's putting up 19 points, 7 boards, 5 assists on 20 other teams, or maybe not 20 because there's not that many teams in the league at this point. There's only like 24, but on 15 other teams, he's probably doing that just consistently. And so I think Kukoc would have had a much better stat line if he got to play on like Steven Jackson type teams.
I think it's possible. Yeah, I think it is possible. I just think even in a shortened role, Kukoc is kind of underwhelming statistically. Um, who's your next guy? So that is 88 of McKee flying through this.
Well, wait, who do you have that I don't have? I've got Persons that's at 80, Hidu,
Hito.
Whitley, Eddie Johnson, Danny Granger, Steven Jackson, Tony Kukoc, and then
Oh wait,
McKee would
yeah, no,
be
you're right. I just
87.
87.
Can I actually make the case to
Okay.
put McKee down at 88 and then sneak in Josh Howard?
Yeah, I'm interested.
So Josh Howard is one of the weirdest cases of my NBA fandom and watching him because he kind of shows up, becomes an all-star, and then just falls off so fast, so hard with injuries. Like the 07 team, or really, he's good in 06 for the team that makes the finals. Then the 07 Dallas team, he takes a bigger piece of that, and when they fall apart in the playoffs, he was still good. It's Dirk that falls apart, and Josh Howard is giving you 21 points, basically 10 boards, as well as two steals per game. Like
Hmm.
Josh showed up and played incredibly good ball. Maybe the second best player. Maybe you want to go Jason Terry that year. Um, for a team that wins 60 something games, and that's a level that we don't see a lot of these other guys hit. I know it's brief, but that's kind of where we're at with guys.
Yeah, I think that's the right call. I mean, the way Johnson Johnson. That's right. Howard. I don't know what I
Josh
combined there.
Howard.
Josh, the way Josh Howard was able to elevate those Mavs teams was pretty special. I think they definitely anticipated something more to come out of that. He was one of the only All-Stars Dirk ever played with. Like I think he was.
Yeah.
I forget, I think it was like Kid made it in 2010 or something, but like for the longest time, it's like Dirk hasn't played with an All-Star teammate since Josh Howard, because he was after Nash had left. But okay, so we have Howard at 87, McKee at 88. Who's your next guy?
Let me see here. I've pulled it up. Yeah, Nash and Dirk are All-Stars together in 03 and 02. And then there's no one till Howard in 07. And then in 2010, it's Jason Kidd. Dirk does not get to play with another All-Star. Like that's really sad, the number of years that Dirk is just shut out of All-Star teammates. And really, I blame the voting block for never giving Jason Terry a nod. I don't know what year it is, but there should have been a year where Jason Terry makes an All-Star team.
Really? Really? Should
one of the
there have been?
He is one of the highest players in the Matrix that did not make it. It's like him and Lamar Odom are the two highest guys that never made an All-Star team.
I get it. I can see that.
And part of that is the longevity of those guys, which does not really factor into All-Star, which is neither of them made it. Like Terry, 09, 19 points per game, coming off the bench. I would say he's probably the second best Maverick. Like there's some room. I would have liked to see him get a Manu nod. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, make it happen. Injury replacements. Something.
All right, I want to hear your next guy.
All right. Oh God, who even is my next guy? All right. My next two guys, and I'll let you kind of pick between them. Cazzie Russell, famed Nick. And after Cazzie's with the title teams, he goes to Golden State and has 3 really high-level years. I can grab those numbers here. If I can type right. Cazzie does not have back-to-back A's.
He's the first overall pick.
Okay. Maybe I just never typed that. Yeah. And Cazzie did not particularly like being with the Knicks from what I've read. He wanted to be more of a star, and he does eventually move on to Golden State, get that All-Star nod in 72. The team is not great. It also has other competent players that he's playing with, but I think that's where we're at with these guys is like, could you be a fifth guy on a title team or like a low grade star? I didn't want to say it, but we're like in the Kyle Kuzma range of guys. And I think that's very comparable to what Cazzie is.
No. Make it stop.
And much like Cazzie, you have Corey Bad Porn Maggette, who highly efficient scorer on just garbage teams for years. He penetrated and got there. That was always the thing.
There was a lot of penetration and scoring, but did you really like what you were seeing?
Yeah, it always left you wanting more. It was just disappointing, but
yeah,
it's also some really good longevity.
No, sure. I mean, he's 16 a night for 800 games. I think the worst awards players can get votes for is most improved in the 6-man. I think when you look at a player's career and they keep getting most improved votes, like Monte Ellis wins it and they keep voting for him, and it's like that's not a good sign for his development. Because if he was really getting better, he would be an all-star. But instead, it's like, hey, most improved again. I do think Maggette. I think it's time for him, just because he gets to the line. Like he was like, he could get buckets, and eventually these bad teams needed someone that could just get buckets.
Yeah. Let's see here. So he makes the playoffs just twice in kind of his 8-year peak. I've got his 8-year peak being from 03 to 2010, where he's giving you 19.5 points per game, 5.5 boards, and 2.5 assists. Just 2 playoff appearances in those 8 seasons. 5 of the 8 seasons are on sub 30 win teams.
Yeah. I think, you know what? I'm going to toss this out there. I think sometimes we can be slightly offensive biased towards
Sure.
the end of this list. Corey Maggetti's offense is not fucking good. And it's like he got buckets. And so I don't know how you feel about Bruce Bowen or where you're at with him. Or I know, like, as a Lakers fan, you have some like Bruce Bowen hate shrine in your closet or something. But with Bowen, you're getting 8 all defensive selections, a constant defensive player of the year presence. He was second 3 times in a row. He was fourth twice. Like, maybe those voting is kind of fucked up, but still, it's like this is maybe like the best. This is the best defensive wing of this era of basically the defining defensive wing of the 2000s. And I feel like his offense is bad, but it's not bad enough to limit his minutes. And so he's just out there and he plays in 25 playoff series. He's playing 36 minutes a night in 3 finals. And I feel like, honestly, I feel like we're at that spot where I'd kind of rather have Bowen than Maggetti.
Do we not already have Bowen?
No.
Is he that low in the matrix? So he was not even in the players I reviewed list. So I am pulling him up right now.
I think I added him myself, honestly. I do think like defense because his advanced stats. Yeah, I totally did. I added him myself. I was like, Bruce Bowen should be on this list. If he should be, we're still talking like, hey, like
210.
Good.
I do find myself agreeing with you. The 07 finals, he is out there for 42 minutes a night. And he's out there 42 minutes a night because he has to hound LeBron James for 42 minutes a night. The 05 finals, he's out there for 39 minutes a night, chasing tirelessly after Rip Hamilton. I think that's an excellent call. How many playoff series are we looking at? Over 30
You want
games,
to say higher? You want to say we're even higher than this, and maybe we should put him above like Danny Granger, or are we pushing it too far?
Danny Granger at least showed that he could do this on a competent playoff team. Corey Maggetti did not show that, and I think that is where my dividing line of similar to what we did with shooting guards, where we went Michael Cooper over Monte Ellis. I could get over Kukoc.
All right. But below Steven Jackson, we feel good about that?
Man, making me actually physically type in a player's name.
Yeah, I went rogue. All right, I went rogue. I think it's a good call. And with very similar to Cooper, and they land pretty similarly as well. Okay. My next guy after Maggetti at 90 now was Kenny Sears. Very similar Knowles argument. He's playing on early Knicks teams from 56 to 61. Leaves for a little bit, comes back for some other years, but from 56 to 61, he makes 2 All-Star teams, sorry. Gets MVP votes in 4 years, averages 10 boards, 2 assists, and 17 points. The Knicks do make the playoffs once in 59, but usually are pretty bad. He leads the entire league in field goal percentage in 59 and 60. So, yeah, leads the entire league in offensive win shares, 1959.
He is also a genuinely honest and smart human. Also, sounds like he dealt with like a lot of mental health things, bullied a lot due to his height. Guy is like 6'9", and trim, like thin. If you read up on him, it sounds like he's a dead eye shooter, but like just rail thin. And he talks about like the game having passed him up, it became physical, a lot of pushing and shoving, and he just didn't weigh much, and that's what the decline of his career was. But he also has this great quote about how like playing a team like Boston, who we played a dozen times, we just couldn't compete with them. And then when Wilt Chamberlain came in the league, we were nowhere. And I just love the self-realization of like we talked about this earlier. You play those guys all the time, and it can be so demoralizing because you just get beat down and bullied. I love it. I think this is the right pick to have Kenny Sears here.
You want to hear one more name from me?
Sure.
Just an offer. Mickey Johnson, the rubber band man, known for his slender frame, and this guy's listed as a power forward. Never mind. Taking him out.
Boom. Take him out of here. Get him.
My next guy was
out
Jim
of our...
Jackson. Then
I found myself a lot less enamored with Jim Jackson than I thought I would be, because I remember loving Jimmy Jackson and all that he could do. I want to circle back. We locked in Corey Maggette and Cassie Russell at 90 and 91. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. Might I interest you in Mikal Bridges? 92? Yes.
Okay. I like Bridges. I'm curious if... Here's the question. Is Lauri Markkanen worse than Mikal Bridges?
So I thought about Markkanen. And I think in the abstract, if I was just picking them today, I would rather have Lauri Markkanen. However, this is not in the abstract. This is based on what they've accomplished. And I think if neither of them ever touched a basketball again, Mikal Bridges is higher because of what we have seen him do in the playoffs. We have seen him, one, be a really high-level role player on a finals team. We haven't seen Lauri do that. And then two, we saw him last year with Brooklyn be the number one option and put up 20-something points per game. And I just don't think we have yet to see Lauri be that level of player that Mikal has shown in the playoffs yet.
Yeah, I mean, Markkanen has never made the playoffs, so I think that definitely hurts. And just to be clear, Mikal Bridges averaged 19.6 points per game. His scoring was not very good last season. He shot 44% from the field. His volume wasn't good in a season that everybody could score 20 a night. So I kind of pushed back, and I think last season was kind of a disaster. I think they're very close. Markkanen, I think we're going to look back next season and maybe 2 seasons from now, and Markkanen's clearly better. Because Markkanen is so goddamn good that the Jazz have built a tanking roster, and then he just takes them to 500. And every single year, about February or like January, February, they just like have to sit him down. Like, this guy keeps winning us games. Like why are we 15 and 17? Like, this team is supposed to be 2 and 30. Like, how can we fix this? I think he's genuinely good. I think he's one of like the 25 best guys in the NBA. I don't know if I'm there on Bridges.
Can we get Bridges in for now?
Yeah,
it's no playoffs. It's the fact that Markkanen has not shown us anything in the playoffs yet. And I actually, can we put Bridges at 92, Kenny Sears at 94, and then I'd like to put Tom Sanders in at 93 as a guy who played in relatively the same era as Kenny Sears, but really contributes at a super high level. Well, not a super high level, but really contributes to playoff teams. I feel like he is the Bruce Bowen of his era of let me chase Sanders. Elgin Baylor. Yeah.
Man, I like it. Yeah. That's good. I mean, he dude won 8 championships.
All right. So Bridges 92, Satch 93.
Can we put Satch above Bridges?
Sure. I'm not going to hate that too much.
I feel better about that.
All right.
Okay.
There's one name on this list who, if you bring him up, I am so excited to shoot him down that I want to offer you the next nomination spot.
I don't even know who that could be. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm offering it to you because I want you to bring him
Oh.
up, then I can shoot him down. It's mean if I just say like, "Hey, I'd like to nominate this guy to get the fuck out of here." Like,
Okay.
uh,
Okay, so we've already established that I'm interested in marketing. I had him. I had Jim Jackson as well. I would like Cedric Ceballos to make this list, and I also would like Orlando Woolridge to make it.
okay, okay. I had Woolridge at like the last couple of guys. I got really interested in some high level role players that have like good longevity. So your Nick
Mhm.
Batums, your Trevor Ariza, your Shane Battier. Um,
Yeah. Ooh, Shane
any
Battier.
of those
Yeah.
guys? Any of those guys interest you?
Read me the list one more time. Ariza Batter, Batum. Batum, get the fuck out of here.
Batum,
I'm not. I've Nick
Ariza,
Batum sucks balls. I'm not
but
interested. No, Nick Batum has been a bad
okay,
player like for half his career.
Nick Batum
Nick
um
Batum.
is a victim of his own success.
Yeah, I
The
could
the
see that.
2014
Yeah.
2015 playoffs with the Blazers. Those 2 years, he averages 42 minutes, 15 points per game, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. It's he's just such a multifaceted, talented player that Michael Jordan said, "I'm going to give you a contract that's more than Chicago paid Pippen for his entire career, more than Pippen
Dude,
got in his entire career.
it's all Michael Jordan's
One
fault, that
contract. Just
bastard.
let me wreck your life."
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like Batum. I
Um,
just
but
like, dude, Nick Batum, top 100 small forward.
I
Go
mean,
ahead.
it's 1,000 career games. It's 70 win shares. It's 863 starts. Like this guy should never have gotten that contract, and that contract ruins every part of his overall value. But you could
Mm.
not tell me that he couldn't have been Bruce Bowen if he was in the right circumstances. You can't tell me that he wouldn't have been better than
I'm
Trevor Ariza.
gonna tell you that
Um,
right now. Yeah, I don't think that guy should make the list. I don't think Ariza should make the list. Um, okay. Who do we have? What's our common ground? Who are you most interested in out of the guys I said? Um, Markkinen,
um,
Jackson, Sabalos, and Woolridge.
uh, Woolridge, Woolridge is a guy that made my list. The others did
Yeah.
not.
Okay. Woolridge is 12th in
I
points per
just
game, 1985. There
I
you go.
just couldn't get there. Like I understand what you're saying with Marketing, but the fact that he's never played in the playoffs, that for me is just
Yeah.
a bridge too far. I think we should add that to like, hey, we need 5 seasons of play,
Mhm.
um, and playoffs. If you don't hit 5 seasons and you don't play in the playoffs, what are we even doing here?
Unless it's Anthony Edwards, who gives a fuck? I'm not gonna set these arbitrary goalposts up. All right, who's next? So we have
Uh, the playoffs for Anthony Edwards, though, that is a
yeah.
lot.
Did you did
Give the listeners your Woolridge case so we can slot him in at
sure
95.
Forge gets buckets, man. In 1985, he was 12th in points per game on 55% shooting. He's kind of like supposed to be Jordan's sidekick. That never materializes. He ends up going to New Jersey, getting injured. Um, it breaks 25 points per game in 1991 with 53 games with the Nuggets. Um, averaged 16 points a game in 851 games. Um, averages 20 a night in the 85 first round and the 86 first round. Also is like a 20 minutes a night bench piece on the 89 Lakers that make the finals. So yeah, there's a little bit of winning, some mostly just individual stats. It's kind of where I'm at.
I feel like he's kind of the Chuck Persons, where Chuck I feel like gets blamed a lot in Indiana for like the team not being overly successful, and they of course hit new heights after he leaves. Very similar with Orlando. As soon as Chicago moves off him and gets in a more of a defensive player, or like Scottie Pippen, Indiana also brings in a more defensive player in Derek McKee. It makes more sense with their offensive first star, but Woolridge was really good. Does put up those points. I did find some knocks against his defense. A lot of commentators saying like he just leaks out, and so like that's how he's putting up that efficient offense is by trying to cherry pick points. But at this point in the list, a couple of 20 points per game seasons goes a long way in my mind.
He also won the slam dunk contest twice.
Yeah.
That's
Could I
worth
interest you
something.
maybe in
Okay.
Don Nelson?
Is Don Nelson even a
Similar
small forward?
at this point. Who
No,
knows?
he is. No,
Who
he
knows?
is. You're right. He just strikes me as
He's the
such a big dude that in my head he's like closer to 6'10", but he's only 6'6". Yeah, I mean Don Nelson played a long time. Won 5 championships.
now Don Nelson never crosses like the 30 minutes per game in a playoff series. 150 playoff games doesn't get over 30 minutes a lot. But he is a value added offensive player, career true shooting added of over 900, and is there for a lot of big playoff moments. The 5 championships, you don't get. I mean, you could probably fill in other guys instead, but having a consistent level play like him, having someone that can step up in those big moments. In the 68 finals, he's 27 minutes a night, 14 points, 8 boards. Like it's a contribution to winning that I think is important and nice to see. And he does it time in and time out.
I think at this point of the list, I think that's the right call. I am still pretty interested in Cedric Ceballos.
Talking
Making the
about
All-Star
Sabalos,
team, 20 point per game seasons. He's just this crazy athlete. At 6'7", 220, this crazy athlete, led league in field goal percentage 1993, lots of dunks. Ends up getting injured, but is still a part of a pretty good Phoenix group and then a pretty good Lakers group. He was like sorry, I'm finding what I'm trying to say. When Magic comes back, he kind of like stalls what the Lakers were doing because they had like Sabalos and Vlade and Nick Van Exel, and it was like this fun group, and they were pretty good. And while like Magic, I think was still a good player, I think he just distracted that team from progressing essentially. And then Sabalos ends like he's not very happy with that and whatnot. But it's 14 points and 5 boards for about 600 games for Sabalos, upwards of like a 20.8 rebound guy.
I know I hate it. I do think I think you're being a bit generous to him and saying like Magic derailed him. Just coming from Lakerland, and this might be some tier A Lakers propaganda. That cluster of guys is not that good. The Nick Van Exel, Cedric Sabalos. There's a lot of me-isms. A lot of the like we're going to be the next wave. We're the top Lakers. And I think it gets a little bit too much praise. Maybe it gets too much criticism at this point. But someone had to put up buckets. Cedric did it. It's not like the team was overly good, and then he kind of falls apart rather fast. It's just my knocks. It's guy 98. I'm not going to fight you too much. If you want to have him here, we can have him.
Yeah.
I'm just not overly a fan of him.
Can we do Rudy Gay first? Is this the guy you wanted to shoot down?
No. We can do like a post outro song guy I want to shoot down.
I'm interested.
Gay's fine. What's your Rudy Gay case? Because I got enough guys that I looked at Gay and just kind of breezed past it and was like, oh,
Well,
inefficient
2008.
scorer, not a lot of good teams.
Yeah. 2008, 2017, averaged 19, 6, and 2. Dude got buckets. He went out there and he got buckets. And you can't say they didn't because he did. He's played for a long time. Is he still in the league? No. Last season was his last season.
No.
Yeah, but still, I mean, he tore his Achilles in his final sack season, and I was like, oh, that's it for him. And he still came back and actually like started to shoot the 3-ball way better and was playing like spacey small ball center. It's like, oh shit. Rudy Gay was like the last dude I expected to extend his career by modernizing it, but he did.
Can we put him over Sabalos?
Yeah, that's what I had intended.
Okay. So Gay 98, Sabalos 99. We're down to Mr. 100. Do you really
Any
want to do Jim
interesting
Jackson?
people?
You'd mentioned that name earlier.
Not really. I think that 100 spot should be special, and I think it's like the one time we make these lists where I honestly like am okay making that 100 spot kind of unique. I feel like if we're gonna tell the story of basketball through these lists, because I don't think we're gonna go 125 out. I don't know if we maybe at some point, but it's gonna be a real fucking long time. And so, like, do you have a name you're particularly passionate about? Serbiak?
So the three highest guys, no, the three highest guys left on my board are Terry Dissinger, Robert Reed, and Sidney Powell. Any of those names jump out to you?
I like Reed. He was pretty big on the 81 champion or finals run that Houston made. This is Cincy Powell, the ABA player, right?
Yes.
Gotcha. Yeah, I could be interested in him as well. ABA second team, 2-time All-Star. I'll let you pick.
All right. So Terry is an interesting case because he plays his first 2 years, and then has to steer from military service. His first 2 years, he's an all-star and is like really good. Is it 2 or is it 3 years? 3 years. 3 all-star appearances in the first 3 years, 21 points, 7.4 rebounds per game. There's just not a lot of playoffs for him.
Yeah, that's still part of it, though, right?
Yeah,
that's part of the 60s, right? You're not going to ask the Baltimore Bullets and the Pistons to make the playoffs, but he's still a very, very good player. Rookie of the year, 8th in MVP voting in that first season. I think that's a good last pick. If that's where you're leaning.
He also, during his rookie year, obtains his chemical engineering degree from Purdue, who would let him attend school on nights and weekends. Dissinger recalled one time after class, he left Purdue at 4 p.m., taped up his ankles in a cab, and then played in San Francisco that night. So he drives to the airport or on a plane, goes and plays in San Francisco. He says it wasn't that tough of a year because I received my degree, I received Rookie of the Year, and I was paid to play the game I love. Post his playing career, he became an orthodontist. The 2 years of military service really helped us of a lot of probably his good career. But man was a highly efficient scorer. He was thin but fast for a forward. Does get pushed around, could get held off. I found a defender saying like, "Yeah, Terry, he'd burn you past you, but if you got physical with him, you could grab him, you could hold him, and that was a way to limit him." So I think the 3 years of that really high level play is worth it. And if you don't want Terry, I'd be interested in Markkanen. If you just want a splashy name for 100.
It's not splashy enough. Let's do Dissinger. I think it's the right pick.
I mean, if you want a really splashy name, we can go with like some Rick Fox, some Shane Battier, some
okay, let's think about Battier just for a second. Let me just look more into that. Battier is a very good defense player.
It's high level defense, it's longevity. It's hard to really say that there's a lot of winning in there when he's good. Because like by the time he makes it to Miami, what is he, like 35, 33? But man's picking up Defensive Player of the Year votes for 6 seasons. Like, albeit 2 of them are not, they're 21st and 15th place. So I'm guessing that's a single vote. But he's got 10th, 5th, 3rd, and 4th with Houston. He is the healthiest of the Yao Ming, Tracy McGrady kind of combo out there. We're like, if those guys are healthy, we're probably talking about him being a really high level playoff performer.
I think let's do Battier, honestly.
Put up decent numbers. All right. I don't hate it. I like getting some of the role players in here. Because if you ask me, would I rather have a Shane Battier career or a Cedric Ceballos career? I would take a Shane Battier career.
So do we have Sabalos at 99 or not?
We have Ceballos at 99. We have
Mhm.
Shane Battier at 100.
Yeah, he is always super impactful. His on off is positive every year but one. That's like the very end of his career. And you have someone that just high level 3-and-D, great shooter. For some of the best Memphis teams, some great Houston teams, and then for Miami, I feel good about it. Would you like me to read what we've done?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
If you wouldn't mind starting at 76 with Jalen Rose.
I planned on it. 76 is Jalen Rose, then Mike Mitchell, Bill Bradley, Tom Eschery. 80 is Chick Person, then Hito Turkoglu, Willie Knowles, Eddie Johnson, Danny Granger, Steven Jackson, Bruce Bowen, Tony Kukoc, Josh Howard, Derek McKee. 90 is Corey Maggette, then Kazi Russell, Tom Sanders, Mikal Bridges, Kenny Sears, Campy Russell, Orlando Woolridge, Don Nelson, Rudy Gay, Cedric Ceballos, and Shane Battier.
Excellent. Another perfect episode, if I do say so myself.
Flawless.
Aaron, where can the people find you?
Possible Chairs on TikTok, Possible Chairs on Twitter. My Patreon where this list will be in writing, as well as links to Nate's TikTok and the Hoops Temple podcast.
I also will get around to uploading the Matrix for Patreon purchases. However, unfortunately, it's really big XL that is crashing and killing computers upon opening. So I got to figure out a way to compress it more so than I already have in a compression. So that way, if you do decide to purchase it, your computer can live through it. You can find me on TikTok, Nate_HoopsTemple. You can email us, hoopstemple@gmail.com. Love to hear who you thought we were too harsh on, or who you just want to make a case for being higher or lower. So hit us up. Love to hear from you. See you next week. You want to know the guy that I was completely out on? That was in this mix?
Are we still recording?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
go ahead.
just gonna sneak this in there at the end after the outro song. See if anybody listens to it. It's Steve Mix.
Interesting. What's wrong with Steve Mix?
He's a one-time All-Star. The next year he gets MVP votes, but so he's not very well initially received in the league. 70 through 72, barely plays. And in 72, he talks about it. He was on that Philadelphia 76ers team, the worst team of all time, and they cut him because they thought he wasn't good enough. And that was like a wake-up call for him. He went and played in a different league, developed an outside jump shot, came back, makes the team. The following year, he gets an all-star appearance, but gets hurt midway through the year. Never as good after that. But so he goes from cut by the worst team of all time to like half of an all-star season and then declines again. And I was just like, oh, this is really uninspiring.
I had never really considered it, I guess, but
I reviewed every all-star for my end of the list.